In this video, we're going to be looking at dynamic and free mark making within the context of portrait painting. Portraits can very easily become overworked, so throughout this piece, I'll show you how to keep your marks loose, direct, and responsive while still maintaining a likeness. It's good that you can join me. Welcome back for another demo. I've been quite busy with commission work and other family obligations, and I haven't had a chance to put out a video last week or maybe even two now. And also this portrait that I'm sharing with you, which I'm quite excited to share as well. It took a little longer than I anticipated. Originally I wanted to create something, as I always do, quick to the point, alla prima, as usually those ones are most powerful and speak the most for me. But ultimately this particular portrait, which I was quite happy with, took about 4, 5, 6 days or so, depending on how you look at it. The video itself was edited down from about an hour and a half to these 15 or so minutes, so I can share, I think, the main concepts and points for this particular week, which a lot of questions have come from you guys about, and that's mark making. How do I create a certain mark? How am I able to get a certain layer to appear as I do in my videos? So this is by no means all encompassing, but it certainly will cover a lot of the ideas that I'm after in my thought process as I'm painting and as I'm using various tools, and I'll discuss that as we go along here. As usual, I've got my reference photo. In this case, it's a black and white, and it's in the top left, or the left of the right. The right is my finished portrait, which I've kind of given you a glimpse of in the beginning, sort of a pan over. And as usual for you guys, as you've asked already many times, I am using a stand-up wax palette here for you guys, just glued to my board. This isn't customary for me. I usually have it in front of me, and it's much larger and much freer. I find that also to be somewhat constrictive, but this gives you an idea as to how I'm thinking, how I'm applying paint, and also how I'm mixing paint. For this demonstration, I chose to paint a well-known Serbian religious leader, Patriarch Pavle, a man whom I had a great fortune of meeting many years ago. He, I believe, reposed in 2009. And although he was a small-statured man, he was certainly larger than life in terms of his humility, presence, and spiritual influence. The original photo, as I said, is in black and white. So one of the challenges here, of course, is interpreting and introducing color in a way that feels believable and convincing. But for me, that's really only part of the challenge. And as the video indicates, the greater challenge, and what I'll be mostly talking about, and the one that applies to portrait painting in general, is how to create something that feels alive. How do we avoid simply filling in shapes or colorizing within the lines? And how do we create a sense of energy, movement, and life without the painting becoming stiff, predictable, and overly formulaic? One of the first ideas I'd like to introduce in this lesson is the notion that in painting, order often emerges from chaos and not the other way around. Many painters, and beginning ones in particular, have a tendency to focus on one small area, finish it completely, and then move on to the next. Personally, I rarely work that way, if ever. Instead, I prefer to move throughout the entire canvas, constantly comparing, adjusting, and responding. I've talked about a bunch about this in my previous videos. Of course, in portraiture, likeness and drawing remain extremely important, and I'm always mindful of these concepts. But at this early stage, what I'm really searching for is rhythm, movement, and an overall sense of energy across the surface. Historically, many great painters worked in a similar fashion. A well-known Spanish master, Joaquin Sorolla, for example, was famously described as painting like pigs eat, with tremendous energy, enthusiasm, and directness. attacking a canvas rather than cautiously painting around it. And that brings us to an important point. Dynamic mark making begins long before the brush touches the surface. It actually begins with your stance in front of that easel, how you're holding your tools, how close you're standing to the painting, and ultimately how you choose to apply each mark. All of these physical decisions play a role in the vitality and character of the finished mark and the finished painting, of course. Whereas most people equate mark making with the kind of tools they're using, and of course that's important, we'll talk about that next. But just as important is how you're holding that tool and understanding the kind of marks it's capable of producing. At the same time, mark making isn't always purely gestural. Particularly in portraiture, there are moments when you have to slow down, become more deliberate, and re-establish certain features in order to maintain a convincing likeness, as I'm doing here in this close-up here. So throughout this painting, just like here, you'll see me moving back and forth between expressive, energetic passages, and then much more careful, precise observations as I'm sculpting features of this man's face. Let's talk a little bit about tools, because whenever mark making comes up, people inevitably ask what brushes or what materials are being used. And while tools are certainly important, I think it's equally important to understand what each tool is capable of doing, and perhaps more importantly, what it cannot do. One of the most indispensable tools in my studio is something that most people already have lying around the house, and that's simply a good old-fashioned paper towel. You saw me use it quite extensively in that initial part of this portrait. So particularly during the initial blocking stages, I use paper towels constantly. They allow me to quickly establish large abstract masses. They, by their very nature, soften edges. They remove paint. You can push paint around and make broad statements without becoming overly descriptive too early. In many ways, paper towels encourage you to think in terms of large shapes rather than details, and that's always good practice at the initial part of your painting. But even in later painting, I'm not opposed to returning to them. If a passage becomes, too heavy, too resolved, or simply isn't working, paper towel allows you to reclaim that area in a way and maybe reintroduce a degree of freshness and spontaneity if you haven't muddied it up too much. The next group of tools you've seen me thus far already, and you'll probably see more so as we paint on here, using are inexpensive hardware store brushes. I don't know that I've mentioned this too much as yet on my channel, but I'm a huge advocate of these, particularly for students. They're affordable, they're durable, and perhaps more importantly, they encourage a certain freedom in the way you paint. And not necessarily only because they're cheap and you don't care about ruining them. There are other reasons. And I guess that is one of the main reasons. You're not afraid to abuse them, a little scrub with them and drag them around your canvas, or attack the surface when it's necessary. That said, not all inexpensive brushes are created equal, as many of you know. Some of the very cheap one variety have a tendency to shed hairs constantly, which can quickly become frustrating. So I always recommend washing them thoroughly before using them for the first time. And they come in all sorts of different sizes. I don't know what part of the world you are watching from, but in Canada here and in the States, certainly you can go to Home Depot and get a bunch of them for like 20-30 bucks. And if you're not inclined to washing brushes, which God knows who is, you can always chuck them and go to the next one for your next painting. A surprising amount of heavy lifting in my painting is actually done with these rather unassuming brushes, and sometimes I use them for final passages as I'm sculpting his hand using probably a $2-3 bristle brush that's an 1.5 inches, creating gesture, which a lot of these marks stayed until the very end. Historically, many painters have relied on ordinary, even humble tools Great painters were rarely defined by their brushes. Rather, they understood how to exploit the unique character of whatever tool happened to be in their hand. Finally, no studio, in my opinion, is complete without palette knives and putty knives. These tools create marks that brushes simply cannot. They can, as you can imagine, scrape, drag, deposit, break, and fragment paint in ways that immediately introduce variety and interest into a surface, as I'm doing right there, trying to sculpt his hat as well as the background at the same time. Painters such as a well-known Russian impressionist Nikolai Fechin and many of the impressionists understood the value of constantly varying their marks, and knives remain one of the most effective ways of doing so. Ultimately, I think the goal isn't to find the perfect tool. The goal is to build a vocabulary of marks, and every tool you introduce into your process simply expands that visual language. Another aspect of dynamic mark making that I think is extremely important is allowing the painting to retain some of the evidence of its own process. I've zoomed in here just slightly. I've gone from a broad putty knife to a fine little, this is a synthetic brush. I've decided at this point to render more of that hand to give it more of an interest in that corner. And you never know with the whole process where it's going to go, but that was my decision here. Many painters, particularly early on in their career, have a tendency to polish every square inch of the canvas to the same degree. And I guess that eliminates any traces of the process. Personally, I think something is often lost when we do that. If you look at painters such as a well-known Swedish painter Anders Zorn, you'll notice that many of his portraits still reveal the history of their construction. Earlier layers remain visible, brushstrokes overlap one another, and certain passages are merely suggested rather than fully described. In a way, I guess viewers invited to participate to complete the image mentally themselves. This idea of suggesting rather than describing is, I think, fundamental to expressive portraits for you. Often a single well-placed mark can communicate far more than a dozen or so carefully blended ones. And of course, at the end, challenge comes in knowing what to leave out, and that's often the hardest part. So closely related to this is this notion of lost and found edges. Not every edge needs to stand out with equal clarity. I've talked a bunch about this on my channel. Some edges can dissolve into surrounding passages only to reappear elsewhere with greater emphasis. And this is really up to you as to where you want the eye to lead. Hard edges have a tendency to, have much more emphasis and lead the eye into that particular area. These variations create rhythm throughout the paintings and help direct the viewer's eyes towards the areas where we consider, I guess, more important. Usually at this latter stage of any kind of painting for me, it becomes about reduction and eliminating things to make things much more poignant and powerful. But for this particular portrait, I felt that that background was lacking a little bit, so I wanted to introduce some more interest and darken those values. And what tool is best used for that but a trusty old palette knife, and I'm holding it in a certain fashion. As I said, I'm not using any medium here, just straight paint, and I'm dragging it across to really create interest in that background and to darken it just slightly. I hope you found some of these ideas on dynamic and expressive mark making useful in your own work. If you have any questions or if there's something that I didn't cover in this demonstration, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to explore some of these concepts further in some future videos. For now, let's take a closer look at this finished portrait as I pan up and down, and as you watch, pay particular attention to the diversity of marks throughout the painting. As you can see, there's noticeable broken color, broken edges, passages created with smaller brushes, larger brushes, and perhaps even remnants of those initial paper towel marks still making their presence known. For me, Every successful painting contains a kind of an ecosystem of marks, some bold, some subtle, some carefully observed, and others almost accidental. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.